What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm here with another Booker Long List book review. Let's get it.
Favorite reader, that's who you are. Traveling near, traveling far. Through every chapter, you're the star. Favorite reader, that's who you are.
Okay, so in 2025, I joined a book club that's reading through all 13 Booker Long List books of 2025. This is the next to the last one. Today we're talking about The Rest of Our Lives by Benjamin Markovits, and let's just jump right into it. So, first of all, this book is about a middle-aged man who is married, he has kids, and let me make sure it's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler. So, actually, I don't want to let me just make sure it's not a spoiler before I go telling it, cuz that's really like the only plot of the book. So I want to say it because there's really not much else to it. Okay, here is the synopsis, just so I'm not ruining it. What's left when your kids grow up and leave home? When Tom's wife had an affair, he resolved to leave her as soon as his youngest daughter turned 18. 12 years later, while taking her to Pittsburgh to start university, he remembers his pact and keeps driving west. An unforgettable road trip novel, The Rest of Our Lives beautifully explores the nuance and complications of long-term marriage. That's basically what the book is about. So the man, he knows his wife is having an affair. She told him. 12 years later, he said, you know what? I decided I'm going to leave when our youngest daughter goes to college. So I'm just going to keep driving west. And you see him make a series of stops on his road trip driving west after dropping his daughter off at school. You hear him reflecting. You see like what he thinks about his marriage. While the book it had some interesting parts. The book had some interesting parts. It looked at marriage and particularly like the unhappiness of being in a pitiful marriage. And I only say pitiful because he didn't want to be there, and it didn't really seem like his wife wanted to be there either. So he actually described his marriage as a C- marriage. I was like, dang. But he experienced betrayal. You kind of get to see how their kids may or may not have been involved in their parents' issues and like what their perspective is, still from the parents' perspective, but you do get glimpses of like when their kids were involved, when their kids noticed certain stuff, when they didn't. Yeah. There's also a part of this book, again, it's about a middle-aged man who's married with kids. So there is a part of the book that's talking about raising kids and like watching them grow up and find their own identity, watching them take their own path, deciding what they like, what they don't like, and really kind of managing your expectations, trying not to push your expectations on them based on what you think they might like, based on what you kind of wanted them to do, a potential that you see. He mentions that with his kids, and I just thought that was interesting to think about. This book made me think about, when Fantasia says, since you like to play with fire, then I'm gonna let us burn. I feel like that's what this book was about. It was like, look, the marriage is on a downward trajectory, and I'm gonna keep letting it go. Like, you know this, I know this. Let's just keep letting it fall. Let the chips fall where they may. We'll see, whatever. I don't care. And it's like, it's sad to think about it. And I know, like, yes, it's a book, but I also know people do really live lives like that. People are in not just marriages like that, but all kind of relationships and partnerships. So it's just like, dang, it really got to a point where they were just almost coexisting, knowing that it's not going to end well. And then you got to what I would think would be like the height of the book that kind of has this semi-resolution thing going on, because he's always like, he said he was going to leave. Is he actually going to leave? And you kind of get to see him decide what's it going to be. Like, he's talking to people, old colleagues, siblings, friends, and you just get to see him go through that process to determine like what does life look like for him? What does he actually want? You get to see his wife's perspective. She cheated, but she also has like unresolved stuff. There's a lot of unresolved issues going on in this marriage. And it sounded miserable. It sounded miserable, but I noticed the reality for quite a bit of people. It did sound miserable. There's another part too. Like, yes, it's about parenting. Yes, it's about marriage, but also included in that, it's about aging. So you get to see him like kind of go through a series of things that make him more aware of his age and like where he is in life, and just thinking about like what that means, especially in relation to the fact that you've been married to this woman for X amount of years. Y'all got these kids, you built this life. How does that all tie into, sadly, the rest of the life that you have left? So it's sad. And I don't even think it's supposed to be a sad book, but when you think about like, wow, you got these limited, I mean, a lot of life left, but still it's a finite amount of years left. You've already dedicated and spent and invested this amount of time into your kids and your career and your wife and building this thing, and you got this system. What does that look like in the next stage of your life, knowing that you're not the same person that you were when you started your family, when you fell in love with your wife, when you sought out your career? You're not that same person. What do those changes, what do they do to the next phase of your life, and how does that factor in? So that was interesting to think of. Again, to me, I was like, dang, it's kind of depressing, but it's life. Everybody can't just go on and be the same 21-year-old forever. So, Okay, lastly, again, I told you he a husband, dad, agent, career man. What does parenting look like while your marriage is empty and decaying? You get a good glimpse into what that looks like. Maybe expectations and baggage that's placed on your kids, but also knowing that there is no, I don't want to say no love, but there is no safety in your marriage. There's no real connection in your marriage, but you still have to show up and give love and care and attention and a family unit feel to your kids living at the house. And then that kind of shifts once they move out. But at the same time, like, it's hard to pour out into other people when you wake up every day feeling miserable. Is People do it, but then you kind of get to see in this book like the struggle between those two, what it actually takes out of a person to get up, give they all to the other people in the household, knowing like my marriage is falling apart, it's decaying, it's empty, I'm miserable, I'm counting my days until I leave. I don't want that to spill over into how I treat my kids, but inevitably, like, they're in the house, so you kind of get to see the kids. Again, you see the kids' perspective, but from the dad's point of view. So you do kind of get to see some of the stuff they say to him, some of the stuff that he knows that they witnessed. And it's just like, dang, it sucks. It sucks. Overall, though, it's not the best book that I read on the book along list. It's not bad. I actually thought it was like most of the books on this list. It was okay. It was like a good book, kind of middly good book to me. So glad I read it. It's a pretty short read. Didn't take much, and it's essentially a book about a road trip. This man is contemplating what he's going to do with the next part of his life. Like, he's thinking back over the years, like looking at the situation and analyzing it for what it is right now. He deals with some life stuff, and then boom, you're going to see like, what's that look like, So I thought it was a good book. Not great, but good. Yeah, that's it. If y'all have read this book, let me know what you think. If it's something you want to read, let me know. And yeah, would you wait 12 years to leave your spouse if you found out that like they told you they cheated? Would you say, in 12 years when my youngest is out, I'm leaving? Would you do that? 12 years is a long time. But yeah, anyways, that's it, y'all. Let's see you on the next one.
days turning soft as silk. Stories flowing like warm milk. A journey starts with every line. Worlds unfold.